So we're going to discuss the lifting of Govardhan Hill, reading directly from the Krishna book. And then I have something else to share with you regarding the prayers of Lord Indra and some other facets of the Govardhan ceremony. So we'll share that with you, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn something, and I hope you feel it's worth your while. Thank you again for joining us. It's nice to see all of you with your cameras on, with the exception of POOJA and Nitya and Mukunda and Nitya. I've got two Nityas. Okay. I have a feeling they're all from Binyan. But in any case, thank you very much. And we'll begin with chapter 24 of the Krishna book, The Lifting of Govardhan Hill. While engaged with the Brahmins, who were too much involved in the performance of Vedic sacrifices, Krishna and Balaram also saw that the cowherd men were preparing similar sacrifice in order to pacify Lord Indra, the king of heaven, who is responsible for supplying water. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, a devotee of Krishna has strong and firm faith and in the understanding that if he is simply engaged in Krishna consciousness and Krishna's transcendental loving service, then he is immediately freed from all other obligations, religious or otherwise. A pure devotee of the Lord doesn't have to perform any of the ritualistic functions that are enjoined in the Vedas, nor is he required to worship the demigods. Being a devotee of Lord Krishna, one is understood to have already performed all kinds of Vedic rituals and all kinds of worship to the demigods. One does not develop devotional service for Krishna simply performing Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or worshiping the demigods. But it should be understood that one who is fully engaged in the service of the Lord has already fulfilled all Vedic injunctions. So in order to stop all these nonsense activities by his devotees, Krishna wanted to firmly establish exclusive devotional service during his presence in Braja. Because he is the omniscient personality of Godhead, Krishna knew that the cowherd men were preparing for this Indra Puj, this Indra sacrifice. But as a matter of etiquette, he began to inquire with great honor and submission from the elder personalities like Maharaj Nanda. "My dear father," Krishna said, "what is this arrangement that is going on for a great sacrifice? What is the result of such a sacrifice, and for whom is it meant? How is it performed? Would you kindly let me know? I am very eager to know this procedure, so please explain to me the purpose of this sacrifice." Well, upon this inquiry, his father, Nanda Maharaj, remained silent, kind of ignoring his child, thinking that the young boy wouldn't be able to really understand all the intricacies of this adult, performing of sacrifices of jaga. Krishna, however, persisted. "Oh, my dear father, for those who are liberal and saintly, there is no such thing as secrecy. They do not think of anyone. They do not think anyone to be a friend or an enemy or a neutral party, because they are always open to everyone. And even for those who are not so liberal, nothing should be kept secret from family members or friends. Although secrecy, well, it may be maintained for persons who are inimical, but nevertheless, you cannot keep secrets from me, your own son. All persons are engaged in fruitive activities, and some know what these activities are, and they know the result. and some will execute these activities without knowing the purpose or the result. A person who acts with full knowledge, he receives the full result. One who acts without full knowledge does not receive such a perfect result. Therefore, please let me know the purpose of the sacrifice you're going to perform. Is it according to Vedic injunction, or is it simply some popular traditional ceremony? Kindly let me know in detail about this sacrifice. Well, upon hearing this inquiry from Krishna, Maharaj Nanda replied, my dear boy, this ceremonial performance is more or less traditional, because the rainfall is due to the mercy of King Indra, and the clouds are his representatives. And because water is so important for our living, we must show some gratitude to the controller of this rainfall, Maharaj Indra. We are arranging, therefore, to pacify King Indra, because he has very kindly sent us clouds to pour down a sufficient quantity of rain for successful agricultural activities. Water is very important. Without rainfall, my dear boy, we cannot farm, we cannot produce grain, and without grain, we cannot live. Therefore, rain is necessary for our successful religious ceremonies, for economic development, and ultimately for liberation. So, we should not be giving up this traditional ceremonial function. If one gives it up, being influenced by lust or greed or fear, then it does not look very good for him. Well, after hearing this, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the presence of his father and all the BRIJBASI'S, the elder cowherd men of Vrindavan, spoke in such a way as to make the King of Heaven very angry. He suggested that they forego this sacrifice. His reasons for discouraging the sacrifice to please Indra were twofold. First of all, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there is no need to worship the demigods for any material advancement. All results derived from worshiping the demigods are simply temporary, and all those who are less intelligent, they are simply interested in temporary results. And secondly, whatever temporary results one derives from worshiping the demigods is actually granted by the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So it is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita that whatever benefit is supposed to be derived from the demigods is actually bestowed by the Supreme Lord. Without the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one can bestow any benefit upon anyone, period. But sometimes the demigods become puffed up. They are influenced by material nature, and they think themselves to be all in all. They forget the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's clearly stated that in this instance, Krishna wanted to make King Indra angry. This was his whole idea. Krishna's advent was especially made for the annihilation of the demons and the protection of his devotees. King Indra was certainly a devotee and not a demon, but because he was puffed up with his position and so forth, Krishna wanted to teach him a lesson. He first made Indra angry by stopping the Indra POOJA, which had been arranged by the cowherd men in Vrindavan. My dear father, Krishna said, I don't think you need to worship any demigod for the successful performance of your agricultural activities. Every living being is born according to his past karma, and leaves this life simply taking the result of his present karma with him. Everyone is born in different types or different species of life, according to their past activities, and they get their next birth according to the activities of this life. Different grades of material happiness and distress, comforts and disadvantages of life are the different results of different kinds of activities from either past or our present life. Well, Maharaj Nanda and the BRIJBASI'S were rather stunned by this little child speaking all this wisdom, but nevertheless they argued that without satisfying the predominating demigod, then we cannot derive any good results simply by material activities. This is actually the fact, Bhaktivedanta Swami says. For example, it is sometimes found that in spite of first-class medical help and treatment by a first-class physician, a diseased person still dies. It is concluded, therefore, that the first-class medical treatment or attempts of the first-class physician are not in themselves the cause for curing the patient. There must be the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, a father's and mother's taking care of their children is not the cause of the children's comfort. Sometimes it's found that in spite of all the caring of their parents, the children still go bad, or they succumb to death, premature death. Therefore, material causes are not sufficient to explain the results. There must be the sanction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nanda Maharaj therefore advocated that in order to get good results for agricultural activities, they must satisfy Indra. We must do this, my little child. He is the superintending deity of the rain. He is supplying the water. But Krishna nullified this argument, saying that the demigods give results only to persons who have executed their prescribed duties. The demigods cannot give any good results to the person who has not executed their prescribed duties, and therefore the demigods are themselves dependent upon the execution of people's duties. And there are not any absolutes in awarding good results to anyone. So why should we care about them? Indra, the rain comes on the ocean where there is no need, and on the land, and even on the desert. Why care about that? You do not need to worship Indra to get the rain. My dear father, Krishna said, there is no need to worship the demigod Indra. Everyone has to achieve the result of his own work. We can actually see that one becomes busy according to their natural tendency. And according to that natural tendency, all living entities, whether they are humans or demigods, achieve their respective results. All living entities achieve higher or lower bodies and create enemies, friends, or neutral parties only because of their different kinds of work. One should be careful to discharge duties according to their natural instinct and not divert attention to the worship of various demigods. The demigods will be satisfied by proper execution of all of our duties, so there is no need to worship them. Rather, let us perform our prescribed duties very nicely. Actually, one cannot be happy without executing his proper prescribed duty. One who does not, therefore, properly discharge his duties is compared to the unchaste wife. The proper prescribed duty of the Brahmins is the study of the Vedas. The proper duty of the royal order, the Kshatriyas, is engaging in the protection of its citizens. The proper duty of the Vaishya is agriculture, trade, protection of the cows, and banking duties. And the proper duties of the Shudra is to serve the higher classes, namely the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. And we belong to the Vaishya community. And our proper duty is to farm, to trade with the agricultural produce we grow, and to protect the cows or to take to banking. Krishna further explained to his father, this cosmic manifestation is going on under the influence of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. These three modes are the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction. The cloud is caused by the action of the mode of passion, and therefore it is the mode of passion which causes the rainfall. After the rainfall, the living entities derive the result, success in their agricultural work. What then does Indra have to do with this? Even if you do not please King Indra, what is he going to do about it? We do not derive any special benefit from Indra. Even if he is there, come on, he pours water on the ocean, and there is no need where there is no need of water. And whether he is pouring water on the ocean or on the land, it doesn't depend on who's worshiping him. As far as we are concerned, we do not need to go to another city or another village or to a foreign country. There are palatial buildings in the cities, but we are satisfied living here in the forest of Vrindavan. Our specific relationship is with Govardhan Hill and the Vrindavan forest and nothing more. Therefore, I request you, my dear father, begin a sacrifice which will satisfy the local Brahmins and Govardhan Hill. Let us have nothing more to do with this Indra. Well, after hearing all this, Maharaj Nanda replied, my dear boy, since you are asking, I guess I can arrange for a separate sacrifice for the local Brahmins and Govardhan Hill. But for the present, let me execute this sacrifice, this traditional sacrifice that has gone on for so many years, this Indra Puj, Indra Jaga. But Krishna replied again, my dear father, don't delay. The sacrifice you propose for Govardhan and the local Brahmins will take a lot of time. It's much better that you take the arrangement and paraphernalia that you have already made for this Indra Jaga and immediately engage them to satisfy Govardhan Hill and the local Brahmanas. Excuse me. Nanda Maharaj finally relented. Then the cowherd men inquired from this little boy, Krishna, how he wanted the sacrifice performed. And Krishna gave him the following directions. You should prepare very nice foodstuffs of all descriptions, from the grains and ghee collected for the sacrifice. Prepare rice and dal, and then halava, pakora, puri, and all kinds of milk preparations like sweet rice, rabri, sweet balls, sandesh, rasgul, and laddu. And you should invite all the learned Brahmins who can chant the Vedic hymns and offer oblations into the fire. The Brahmins should be given all kinds of grains in charity. Then you need to decorate all the cows and feed them well. After performing this, give money in charity to the Brahmins. As far as the lower animals are concerned, like dogs, cats, and, the Sudras and other people such as that, Well, the Chandalas even, or the fifth class of men, who are considered to be untouchable, they also must be given sumptuous prasadam. After nice grasses have been given to the cows, the sacrifice known as Govardhan Puj may immediately begin. This sacrifice will very much satisfy me. So you can see the power of prasadam. The power of prasadam is absolutely amazing. When Bhaktivedanta Swami came to New York, he really, by all Vedic descriptions, he sat and tried to teach Chandalas. Not even Shudras, Chandalas, people who ate cows, people who ate all kinds of meat, people who were the lowest among mankind. And because he gave them sumptuous prasadam every day, fed them prasadam, 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 gradually they became devotees. It's an amazing thing. Prasadam is so powerful. So from this statement, we learn also that cats and dogs, which have now become so important to people in the West, they are not to be neglected. But cow protection is actually more important than protecting the cats and dogs. Another hint we get from this statement is that the Chandalas, or the untouchables, are also not to be neglected by the higher classes, and they should be given all necessary protection. Everyone is important, but some are directly responsible for the advancement of human society, and some are only indirectly responsible. However, when Krishna consciousness is there, then everyone's total benefit is taken care of. That's the important thing. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, therefore advised the cowherd men to stop this Indra Jaga and begin Govardhan Puj in order to chastise Indra, who was very much puffed up at being the supreme controller of the heavenly planets. The honest and simple cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, accepted Krishna's proposal, and they executed in detail everything he advised. They performed Govardhan worship and circumambulation of Govardhan Hill. It's a 26-kilometer circumambulation, probably even longer in those days because Govardhan is not nearly what it was then. Following the inauguration of Govardhan Puj, the people of Vrindaban still dress nicely and assemble near Govardhan Hill to offer worship and circumambulate the hill, leading their cows all around. According to the instruction of Lord Krishna, Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men called in the learned Brahmins and began to worship Govardhan Hill by chanting Vedic hymns and offering prasadam. The inhabitants of Vrindaban assembled together, decorated their cows, and gave them grass. Keeping the cows in front, they began to circumambulate the wonderful Govardhan Hill. The gopis all dressed themselves as luxuriously as they could, and they sat in bull-driven carts, chanting the glories of Krishna's pastimes. They assembled there to act as priests for Govardhan Puj. The Brahmins offered their blessings to the cowherd men, their wives, and the gopis. Then, when everything was complete, Krishna assumed a great transcendental form and declared to the inhabitants of Vrindaban that he was himself non-different from Govardhan Hill. Then Krishna began to eat all the food offered there. The identity of Krishna and Govardhan Hill is still honored, and great devotees will even take rocks from Govardhan Hill, Govardhan Shila, and worship them exactly as they worship the deity of Krishna in their temples. The followers of the Krishna consciousness movement may therefore collect small rocks or pebbles from Govardhan Hill and worship them in their home, because this worship is as good as deity worship. The form of Krishna, who began to eat all the offerings, was separately constituted, and therefore Krishna himself, along with all the other inhabitants of Vrindavan, offered obeisances to this deity, as well as Govardhan Hill. So you can understand that Krishna took on this transcendental form, this amazing, in my mind's eye, I see it like a Vishnu form, a giant, form, but it was separate from Krishna. Krishna, the child, Krishna was still there with all the BRIJBASI'S, and so he, along with all of them, were offering obeisances to the deity in Govardhan Hill. In offering their obeisances to the huge form of Krishna in Govardhan Hill, Krishna said, "Just see how Govardhan Hill has assumed this huge form. And he is favoring us by accepting all of our offerings." Krishna also declared at that meeting, "Anyone who neglects the worship of Govardhan Hill, as I am personally conducting it, will not be happy. Oh yes, there are many snakes on Govardhan Hill, and anyone who is neglecting their prescribed duty of Govardhan Pooj will be bitten by these snakes and die. In order to assure the good fortune of the cows and themselves, all the people of Vrindavan and near Govardhan must worship the hill as prescribed by me." Wow. So, thus performing the Govardhan sacrifice, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan followed the instructions of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, and afterwards they returned to their respective homes. Are there any questions so far? Sal? Yes?
Yeah. Did he ask forgiveness for his mistake?
Did who ask
King
forgiveness
Indra.
for? Huh?
Did King Indra ask for his forgiveness?
We're going to get into that. Oh yeah, he did. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Any other question? Okay. Well, we have just been observing the celebration of Govardhan Pooj, or the worship of the special mountain or hill in Vrindavan. It is considered non-different from Krishna. It is a festival of simple, though elegant, pomp and gaiety that teaches many practical lessons about living in the balance with nature and with God. For the festival of a hill sanctified food, or prasadam, a hill of sanctified food or prasadam is created. Devotees will create a mountain of food to sacrifice for Krishna, often made, I've often seen it made from halva. But in any case, sometimes they're just huge, they're really, really big. And these festivities, commemorated in this occasion, help us to meditate on the meaning of the story. We hear about what happened, along with plays that reenact it, the worship of the cows and the circumambulating of the hill, as it was done 5,000 years ago. We also pray to enter into a deeper, yet simple, essential message of this blessed event. The worship of Govardhan Hill symbolizes an ideal lifestyle, both rural or country life and simple, and yet opulent in natural gifts, centered on the protection of cows and Brahminical spiritual culture, farming, and the worship of God. by showing gratitude for his many natural gifts. We are also encouraged to live a very healthy life, centered upon love and service to Krishna, in harmony with nature. This pastime, or this Lila of Krishna, covers actually 4 chapters in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Although the adventures or pastimes of Krishna are given a glimpse into the spiritual world, into the eternal spiritual world. We're given a glimpse by reading the Bhagavatam. Krishna's pastime on the planet are like a simple spiritual world, and they are recorded in the pages of the Bhagavatam. We recall these Leelas by hearing and discussing them, and thus we can fix our minds upon Krishna. Whatever place is associated with God is transcendental, even though it may occur apparently upon this planet. It is Krishna's special mercy that he comes here to teach us how his eternal associates live by loving and relating to him. When Krishna comes to protect his devotees from feeling acute separation in his absence, and to reestablish real religion, he also accomplishes many, many tasks simultaneously. Krishna is the supreme multitasker, but he can only do this without anything lacking. He can do this, but only he can do this without anything lacking in his many purposes. Some of the purposes leading up to and during the lifting of Govardhan Hill were to demonstrate that Krishna's devotees don't need to worship any other divinity or deva. And that Krishna's, this king of heaven, Indra, had become proud and conceited with his power, not recognizing that Krishna is God himself. And he was shown dramatically that his power was dwarfed by Krishna. When Indra heard that Krishna had stopped the ceremony to glorify him and was instead worshipping Govardhan Hill, Indra had tried unsuccessfully to destroy Vrindavan and all of its inhabitants, using intense thunderstorms and wind and rain that usually was reserved for the devastation of the annihilation of the planet. It is described by Jiva Goswami that not even a leaf from a tree on Govardhan, not even a leaf fell from the trees of Govardhan Hill, in spite of all of this trouble that Indra was going through. Coming to his senses, Indra offered praise to Krishna's power and glory and prayers for forgiveness. This is a lesson for all of us about the possibility of forgetting that whatever we have is only by the grace of God. And we should never think that we are independently great or powerful. King Indra prayed, "You are the Father and spiritual master of this entire universe. And it is also you who are the supreme controller. You are insurmountable time, imposing punishment upon the sinful for their own benefit. Indeed, in your various incarnations, selected by your own free will, you act decisively to remove the false pride of those who presumed themselves to be masters of the world. Even for fools like me, who proudly think themselves as universal lords, we quickly give up our conceit, and we directly take to the path of spiritual progressive worship when we see that you are fearless, even in the face of time. You punish the mischievous only to instruct them. After hearing these prayers from Lord Indra, Sri Krishna replied to him in a voice resonant like the clouds. My dear Indra, it was out of mercy that I stopped the sacrifice meant for you. You were greatly intoxicated by your opulence as king of heaven, and I wanted you always to remember me. A man who is blinded by intoxication with his power and opulence cannot see me nearby with the rod of punishment in my hand. If I desire his real welfare, I drag him down from his materially fortunate position. Indra, you may now go. You should execute my order and remain in your appointed position as King of Heaven. But be sober, without false pride. And therefore, we have now discussed the lifting of Govardhan Hill and the prayers of Lord Indra, begging for forgiveness, and Krishna's final instructions. We kind of skipped the storm. Hope that's all right. It's, the storm was the storm, and he lifted Govardhan Hill and protected everyone. And I think that we've covered the main points, though, are that we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that we don't have to, have a separate altar for all the different demigods. We don't have to have a separate puja for all the different demigods. There are many people in India and other countries today who still to this day, do not understand this. They have, they figure, well, if I get them all out there, then at least I know that I'm covered somehow or other. I know I'm covered. But this is not necessary. All that's necessary is that we worship Krishna. We offer our food. We offer our prayers. We offer our glorification. We offer his holy name. These are the necessary things. These are the things that will take us back to home, back to Godhead. These are the things that we should remember. Any questions?
Haribol.
Haribol,
Haribol,
Daryl.
sir. When there's a phrase in it's in the Vedas somewhere, isn't it, about demigod worship, being like, is it like it's like watering the leaves of a tree, rather than, like Krishna is the roots kind of thing, and demigod worship is like, do you know where that is in the
many places?
Is it in the Srimad Bhagavatam?
Many places.
Yeah.
You'll find it in many
Okay.
places. Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada says it over and over again in many of his purports, that that worshiping Krishna is like watering the root. And this is one of his main alliterations, is that, water the root of the tree. Don't worry about the leaves. Don't worry about the flowers. They will come. And actually, as any agriculturalist will tell you, if you grow an herb garden, for example, if you water the leaves and the flowers, the plant will get sick. It will attract insects and germs and it'll get sick. If you water the roots, that doesn't happen generally.
Chlorosis, I think, where the leaves go yellow. There's too much water on the foliage and that.
Well,
yeah.
you would know that.
Yeah, I'm into gardening, so a little bit, yeah. So wait, Lord Indra's, obviously a great demigod, the king of heaven. How did he fall? How did he fall into that illusion so much that he thought his castle
most of the demigods worship Narayan. They worship this very opulent, very formal form of God, Lakshmi Narayan, and Indra wasn't even aware that Krishna is God. He wasn't aware that Krishna and Vishnu are one. And so he just thought, God, there's this little 7-year-old boy telling the people in this village what to do, and they're listening? Geez, I got to teach them a lesson. They got to know from where their stuff comes. So, he's thinking that he's doing them a favor by teaching them a lesson, but actually the whole time Krishna is teaching him a lesson as to who's really in charge. And so, Indra was just, when you're in that space, I mean, I hate to get political about it, but then again, I mean, Trump is such a great example of a guy who can't even recognize his own idiocy. Someone who can't even recognize that he's defeated when he's defeated, and that he's a pompous fool, and he would never bow down to Krishna or anybody else. And this is Indra's situation. Indra is, just all puffed up with, I'm Indra. I'm the king of the demigods. I'm king of the heavenly planets. And all this, and we forget. Even a devotee can forget. Any other question? Thank you very, very much for joining us. I'll give it back to Narayan Dasi Garcia. Thank you so much, Narayan Dasi. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your association. God bless you. Namaste. Haribol. Please accept my obeisances. Namo Siddhasarupananda Paramamsa Namine. Gaura Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. Vanchakalpa Tribhascha Kripasindubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Haribol.